You did an open house this weekend? And you said how many people?
But to be fair with theirs, worth it, like, you know, they put it up on the MLS, so they're
Oh.
All right. Was there stuff going on?
That was the end of graduation.
Oh, that's true.
But I mean, you know, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's gonna be crazy.
Oh, it's time to
More
hammer
balloons.
in the,
Get more balloons and
prospecting.
it's happening. All right. Well, welcome to Ignite. I don't think we have anyone on Zoom, just Ritz. Hi, Ritz. Good morning. All right. Today we are going to have Courtney teach us today. Courtney Nielsen, welcome. She's going to talk to us about negotiating offers. So we'll turn the time over to you. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, hello. How are you doing this morning? Good. Awesome. Okay. So, as Molly said, I'm Courtney Nielsen, and my husband and I run Nielsen Property Group. And we also have, we're opening a small branch out in Eagle Mountain. So yeah, anyway, we've been doing real estate. I've been licensed since 2012 and have been doing real estate full time since 2016. And yeah, it's lots of fun. So we're going to go on to negotiation. Last week you talked about, or last time you talked about offers. Yeah. Maybe, I think so. Making and receiving an offer. So today we're going to talk about negotiations. So, let's see. What does this say? All right. Let me skip through. All right. So today we are going to talk about what exactly is negotiation, what the 3 P's of negotiation are, some negotiation tips, and then do some recapping. So you'll probably need, well, there's not very many of us today, so I guess we can just group up into one little group, but I do like to do some partnering. So this quote is awesome. Negotiating is not something to be avoided or fear. It's an everyday part of life. And I will say that when I first got into real estate, the negotiating part like really freaked me out. I have a tendency to get migraines, and every time I would negotiate a deal, I would just like get so much anxiety. I just work all that up. And then after I would get through, you know, coming up with a resolution between both parties, I would basically go in a deep dive into a huge migraine and I'd be out for a couple of days. Like it really took a toll on me until one day I was like, this is normal. Like not me getting worked up, but this is part of the process. And I just needed to relax and know that both parties are expecting this, right? Like part of it is I would build it up into my mind that, you know, these huge high expectations for myself. And I'm a people pleaser. And so I want my clients to be happy and I want to give them everything that they want, right? Well, once I realized, okay, my client doesn't necessarily want everything that they're saying. They're just like trying. I mean, they would love all those things to happen, but they are also realists and know that more than likely all of the asks that they're asking, like this is just the first go. And then we're going to come up with a win-win between both of us. All right. So let's move on. Before we move on though, what limiting beliefs do you have about negotiation? Because you know, for me, those were some limiting beliefs, right? I was worried and I thought that I had to please my clients and make everything happen for them. What are there any that you might have going into real estate? Like, what are your thoughts or perceptions about negotiation? Okay.
So my probably biggest limiting belief is that I don't know enough to be an effective negotiator, when realistically that's not true, because I have a whole team behind me. So
Absolutely. So true. You're right. Ben. Oh, this is my husband, Ben.
Yeah. How are you? So,
He came to support.
well, I was just thinking about the art of the deal with Trump, right? And you were talking about your headaches, and you should write a book called The Part of the Deal, which is all about migraines. No.
Yeah.
No. But for me, as far as negotiations, when I first got into the business, I thought it was like there was no such thing as a win-win. I thought negotiation was about getting your clients everything that they wanted. And that's not the case. Like, negotiation is nothing more than a conversation that is, it's a history of the conversation and where that's going to go. And hopefully in the end, it does turn into a win-win, because and as long as you're fighting for and being a fiduciary for the client, then I think that conversation and those negotiations go over much more smoothly, because you are doing what's right for your client and getting them what they want. And that's just negotiation. I think.
Exactly. So we're going to go back to that WI for C2. I never can remember exactly. It is in a slide here in a minute, but remember, do you know what I'm talking about? Somewhere over here. It's been on the wall somewhere. The WI or 14C2TES thing. Remember, it's a win-win or no deal. So we're helping both parties reach a resolution, right? There's another thing that we need to consider is integrity in all things. We don't want to do anything that is going to be illegal or unethical or anything to get the deal, right? So we want to keep that integrity number one. And then also communication. As part of communication, that's not just, verbal. It's seeking to understand what the other party is wanting and needing and asking. So a lot of times within communication, we have to learn how to be quiet, right? And listen and not control the conversation the whole time. And then another thing that we need is trust. We need to trust in ourselves. And we also need to build that trust with our clients and with the opposing party. And that comes with being honest. So the second tip is we want to keep our emotions in control. Sometimes it's really easy when something doesn't go our way. We immediately jump to conclusions or assumptions, and we're upset or mad or whatever. And so we jump on the phone to the other agent and make a big deal out of something, or even with our clients. Let's see, what's something recently that's happened. Okay. I'm working on some new construction deals and I'm representing the builder, and these homes are almost finished. And so every single one of the buyers are saying, hey, when are we going to do our buyer orientation? And when do we get to close? The biggest question is, when can we close? Because there's an issue with interest rates, right? Everything is going up day by day. And they've locked in their rates, but to extend those rates, it costs money usually. Well, the first one's usually free, I guess, but then the second one gets more money, and there can only do so many lock extensions before they have to start the process all over again. Well, we have an issue right now in this community. The gas line and the gas meter have not been installed, and you can't get a certificate of occupancy without the gas meter installed. And you really can't even do an orientation without that either, because you don't have heat in the house. And so it's just kind of tricky to do the whole process, doing the walkthrough. And I have a lot of mad buyers right now. And so, and I'm representing the builder. So I have to definitely keep my cool. I have to be very calm, cool, and collected when I call. And before I even call them, I'm trying to come up with some resolution. I've talked to the project manager, I've talked to the superintendent. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Well, they have no answers because it's really out of the builder's control. It's not Questar. That dates me. What is it? Dominion. Dominion Gas. That's the company. It used to be called Questar. Anyway, so Dominion is in control of that. We've put in the request over and over and over, but there's a shortage in the gas line, or there's some part that is on back order that's preventing them to come and put in the gas line and then the gas meter and all of that stuff. So anyway, you really have to keep your emotions under control. And when the buyer is super upset, we have to remain keeping those emotions in control. And it's hard sometimes. Like one of the buyers, they go to the house like every day, and oh, it's so annoying. And and every time there's something that they see that's not right, they make a phone call and it's like, you're screwing up. And it's like, no, we're not. Well, I mean, we did, but we have it under control. I promise you. What happened is there's two houses next door, and it's lot 130 and lot 131. And they did the foundation plaster early on instead of at the end. And so the lot number is not posted anywhere. And so a bunch of suppliers got everything backwards. And so they installed the kitchen that was supposed to go in 131 in 130, and the kitchen in 130 in 131. Oh, it's been so fun. Anyway, so keeping our emotions in control. And if you notice this negotiating process right here, this is not at the beginning. We always think negotiation is at contract, right? At price. But negotiation continues to happen all along the process. So we're going to go over that today. Another thing is we've got to give people grace. Like, okay, here was a miscommunication thing on the one of the houses with 130, 131. It was supposed to have black fascia. They installed white fascia. So do you know what fascia is? Fascia and soffit. So on the house, it's like this trim piece, right? That goes up and down like that. And then underneath the eave, I'm not a very good drawer. It's that metal, it protects from the water. Anyway, it was supposed to be black. They installed white. So we're like, okay, we'll fix it. And the house has the roof up here. And then is there like another roof? Something like down here. I don't know. And they did all of the black up here and they left the white here because they just hadn't gotten to it yet. They were going to come back and finish. But the buyer's agent called me, freaked out. He's like, I can't believe you guys are going to leave it this way. And I jumped to conclusions and assumed that he wasn't very clear, and I didn't ask questions. I didn't, say, what do you mean? Explain to me what is wrong. I just jumped and said, they're fixing it. They're replacing it. It's going to be black. Well, a week later, they still hadn't gotten to this white. And he sends me a picture and circles it. And he's like, what is going on here? And I'm like, wait, what? Do you really think they're going to leave that white? Like, they're not, I promise you. They just have only gotten to the top part. Anyway, it's crazy things you deal with, right? On a daily basis. But giving people grace, putting ourselves in the buyer's shoes or the seller's shoes, understanding why the buyer might be upset or the seller might be upset, and going along. All right. So, who's ever bought a car before? Okay, good. Yes. Yes. All right. When you buy your car, do you ever try to negotiate? Like, what do you do to try to negotiate when you're buying a car?
I worked for a car dealership, so
Okay.
it was very easy negotiation.
Well, tell us about that negotiation process.
I mean, you sit down and you look at, all right, they typically have some idea of like, this is what we're selling the car for, right? They present it, and they try and close on that. And you're like, no, I want,
Right.
Yeah.
So asking and right, trying to get that payment down or that price down. It's all about price usually with cars, right? And your payment. Yeah. So cars, just like homes, are, well, actually homes are even more, but cars, it's a high price ticket item, right? And it's something that you're going to have for a long time. And so when you go in, you're trying to negotiate that price. You want to make sure your payment is locked in for a while. Well, it's the same thing with a house, even though it's a bigger purchase. Buyers and sellers expect to negotiate at some point through the deal, usually at the beginning. And according to NAR says that a real estate agent's ability to negotiate is one of the top reasons buyers and sellers look for an agent to help them in their search for sale. So that is part of our value proposition, is that we know how to negotiate. So if you can learn the skills and the art of negotiation, then that's something you can use as a way to get someone to choose you as your agent. All right. So we're going into the next portion. Here we go. Here's our lovely. Yeah. Is there an easier way to say this? I don't even know. I don't know. Okay. So negotiation is a bargaining process. And a bargaining is a give and take process between two or more parties. Each has its own aims, its needs, and viewpoints. So everyone involved is seeking to discover some kind of common ground that you're reaching for. You're trying to find the common ground to reach an agreement to settle a matter of mutual concern or resolve a conflict. So negotiation is where one of these plays a really big role. Which one do you think plays the biggest role in negotiation of all of these? Communication is definitely a big one. It's what? Trust is another big one. We talked about that. Those are definitely key pieces. Success first, go through all of them. Okay, go back to the top. What? Yes, win-win, win-win, blah, 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 win-win. Okay, so talking about win-win. What are we trying to win when we're winning in a win-win? What are we trying to win?
Essentially, you're trying to win your side of whatever you're trying to accomplish, right? You want some form of what you want to accomplish.
Okay, so whatever that aim or need is, right? We're trying to accomplish that for our client. Yes?
I think above all, that you're representing the buyer, the ultimate win is they get the house, and the other win on the other side is they get to sell the house. Now, we're trying to bridge that gap with the communication and negotiation.
Correct. Yes. So we're trying to win. Beyond that, I guess I'm looking more of the big picture. So yeah, we're winning the deal. That's a big picture look at it, right? So we're winning the deal. When are some, okay, if this is within after we've already won the client, right? Because we're, yep. Well, I would say it's pretty high for my clients, in my experience. Granted, there are some people who can never be happy with anything, but at the end, they're still like, there might be some rough patches along the way where maybe they're unhappy, but then by the end, we're happy because, oh, it's sold. we get to move in, so there's always that silver lining at the end if it closes. And most of the time, I would say once we've gotten through all the hurdles, it's closing, right? And we're happy. Wouldn't you say, Ben, that most people are happy at the end?
Yeah, well, and especially building, what I always say is building is, and getting the house that you want with building is somewhere between a Hawaii vacation and a hip replacement, right? And so the expectations up front might be the Hawaii vacation, but then
Yeah.
the whole process could be, kind of difficult to go through. But then in the end,
Yeah. Well, and I learned this from a broker that I worked with a long time ago, but he basically equated the real estate transaction like a flight. So, we're always going to take off, we're always going to land, but along the way, there's going to be some turbulence, and we usually we get through the turbulence, and it might be rough in some parts, really bad, and we might think we're going to die, but usually we get through it, and we always land, and everybody's happy at the end. So yeah, I would say for the most part, both sides are happy at the end.
would you say that we're probably like the pilots and that's great for that from time to time we get on the aircraft, but experience the turbulence, we can see what's happening.
Oh yeah, that's a good perspective. Yeah, I think that's good because we need to set the expectations. A lot of people, like my friend who is a pilot and his wife, like they don't get scared at all in turbulence, because they know that it's normal. Plus the pilot can see that it's fine. And the rest of us in the back, when the plane's going ba-boom, ba-boom, we're like holding on for dear life. Are we going to make it? But yeah, so going kind of along this line of negotiation, we are winning the deal for our clients. We're trying to get everybody happy. But before we've even won the deal, we've got to win the client, right? So we have to look beyond just the transaction, because negotiation is more than just the transaction. We are negotiating clean. Where did that come from? Client, okay? And we are looking for, if we've won the client, part of our negotiation and part of making sure that that client is happy at the end is we're going to get repeat and referrals from that client, right? Another thing that we've got to consider is the agent on the other side of the transaction, right? So we've got to, where do I put that? Just as agent, I guess. As part of negotiation, we're winning the agent on the opposing side. And all of this comes down to what I think is building relationships. Win-win to me is at the end of the deal and throughout the deal is that we're building and maintaining relationships long-term. Because when you think about if you're building a real estate career, more than likely you're going to come in contact with an agent that you worked with before, right? So there's so much more than just the transaction in negotiating. It's everything that we do is negotiating. Ben, did you want to say something?
That we have done, if you're the buyer and you've got to stand out with 10 other buyers, we talk about this a lot, which is if you're the one that's in contact with the seller and you don't just send in your offer and then stand back and wait for it to happen.
Right.
You've got to.
Exactly. And that is something that, that's something that we're going to get to. How do we stand out when we're talking to the agent? How do we, create the deals and set expectations with their clients? All of that, we're going to get there today. But there's a couple of quotes I wanted to share, and I didn't send the slides over to Molly to put, but I've got one from Stephen Covey. He's like the king of win-win, right? He's written books on win-win. And he said that win-win is a belief in the third alternative. So our buyer has one alternative, the seller has another alternative. And so the win-win is that third option. And we're both trying to find what that is. He says, it's not your way or my way, it's the better way, a higher way. And to add to that, he says, many people think in terms of an either or in terms of negotiation. Either you're nice or you're tough. Win-win requires that you be both. It is a balancing act between courage and consideration. To go for win-win, you not only have to be empathetic, but you also have to be confident. You not only have to be considerate and sensitive, you also have to be brave. And to do that, to achieve that balance between courage and consideration is the essence of real maturity and is fundamental to a win-win. So, any takeaways from any of that so far? Aha moment. Yeah. So 5 ways that we can reach this win-win is we're going to communicate. So all of these things on here really, but communicate. Or 5 C's, confidence. According to Stephen R. Covey, we have our contract. We collaborate. And client care, all of those. I know, commitment, communication, creativity, yeah. But anyway, all right. So
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Okay. Sorry, I came on late. Crazy morning, kids. Came on late, and so I don't know what I already missed, and I don't know if you're already going to cover this, but I'm gonna also have to leave early. So I think no, you gotta wait. Just please hold on. Sorry.
You're fine.
So I think one of the things I'm struggling with the whole negotiation process, okay, you've got to stop whining, is verbal versus written versus win.
Versus what?
Win. So like everything is talked about, negotiate and communicate. Okay, are you on the phone talking before you put it in writing? Do you only go back and forth in writing? And I don't know if you've already covered it or if you're going to cover it, but I just don't want to get lost in when you guys are.
So as we go through the session today, a best practice of negotiation is to verbally talk about it first and then submit in writing. Does that happen all the time? No, because sometimes your clients want you to do it a certain way. And you're like, okay, well, I'll go with it, even though that's not what I usually do. So that has happened before, where I've had a client who they just prefer the written back and forth. But as an agent, I always call the other agent and just give them a clue on, of what's coming. And also before I write a contract, as we go through the session and in talking about best practices, one of them is to ask open-ended questions. So I always, like when I'm calling an agent on the phone, I'm going to ask them, okay, this is what we're thinking to offer for price, but are there any other things that we should consider in writing the contract? Because, a contract is more than just price, right? There's terms that we have to negotiate too. And so I want to know what the seller is looking for before I even write the contract, especially when it comes to like dates and, a lot of the term things I want to know before so that we're not having to go back and forth on that. And that mainly the only thing we're going back and forth on is price. We're not negotiating price in that first thing, usually. Okay. Unless it's multiple offers, that's a whole other ball game. And if it's multiple offers, then I'm going to go in and be like, okay, so I know that there's multiple offers. What is a lot of times the seller's agent, the listing agent won't tell you because they can't, but oftentimes their sellers will say, yes, you can disclose what the offers are at, right? So I always kind of push and probe just so I can get as much information as I possibly can out of the listing agent before we go and come up with our own price. So on a multiple offer, I'm going to say, okay, so you have 5 offers. Where do we need to be in order to be competitive in your top 1 or 2? Where do we need to be price wise? And see what they say. If they won't give me an answer, then I'll say, okay, well, are you 5% over ask? Are we 10% over ask? I'm trying to get as much and hoping that as with me asking those questions to the listing agent, then eventually they break and tell me.
Okay.
In the nicest way possible, right? I don't want them to do anything unethical, but I, want them to say, okay, let me go talk to my client and see how much I can share with you. Yes, do that.
Okay.
But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes. I know that sounds like I'm not convincing. Not that the yes doesn't sound convincing, but that's just because there's always going to be more questions. So for the most part, yes, you did. So I had one agent I was talking to because I had a client who was possibly going to put an offer in. And when I was talking to this agent, and we were just texting at the time, because I had helped her with something, and she was like, just put your best offer forward. I don't know, the way she said it, it was like, hold on, guys.
So then you have to ask even more. Okay, then kind of break it down. All right, are we like at 5% over? Can you tell me that kind of thing?
Right, but I also don't want to tick them off.
Yeah.
I want to be the workable agent that people go,
right.
Oh, I totally want Julie to be the other side.
Right. But there's a certain level of, you're right, you do need to maintain the relationship, but there is a certain amount of like, it's okay to push a little bit,
Okay. So everybody expects to be pushed.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. We both want the same thing as what's your name? Cash said, we both want the same thing. We both want to sell the house and buy the house. We want it to close. Just like up here, we have on the path of negotiation, there's 2 options. Option 1 does not happen very often. Offer accepted, go to close, right? Sometimes though, it does, if you have done this verbal back and forth, like I've done that before, where I call up, okay, let's come to some resolution. Now, I'm not a person who likes to send 40 addenda. We just want to get it done. So let's send over the offer. Let's all then talk, let's come up with the resolution and then let's do it in one addendum and be done.
Okay.
Some people are like I had a client who was a luxury client, and we were selling like a $1.5 million house, which doesn't sound like that much anymore, but it was a lot a couple of years ago. And that client, they wouldn't really verbally negotiate. So they would say, we would talk about it, but then they're like, well, let's see what they send, because it wasn't like they wouldn't even talk about it until there was something in writing. And then, so that was kind of frustrating, but that was kind of a unique situation. And I don't know if it was just because of the type of contract or type of listing it was.
I think that's kind of weird because in the long run, I think that, being on the other side, I'd want to convince them to write an offer. Instead of shut them down to write an offer, to convince them, if you shut down and you won't talk, they can just walk away and go, fine, I don't want to work with you. I'll find a different house.
So in that scenario, like I guess I'm not sure what you mean by that, because I usually like talk to the client, we work something out, and then I go to the agent and say, hey, this is what we're sending. We send it in writing, and then we talk verbally between agents, and we come back to our clients and say, hey, they said this, hey, she said that, they said that, blah, 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 and we come up with our win-win, and then we write it up.
No,
Does that make
that
sense?
makes sense. I'm just saying, like, if you were to go and ask the listing agent questions on, trying to put your best foot forward, and they shut down and they're like, nope, just send something. They don't even want to tell you anything. It almost sounds like, why wouldn't they want to try to convince you? Like, yes, engage in conversation. Let's see if we can manipulate each other.
So there's some philosophies behind that. And I would say one of that is they're trying to give every buyer equal chance. So it sucks sometimes if you're the first one who writes a contract and then the agent uses that as bait to get higher offers. And then that first offer is like screwed, right?
Right.
And so there's the philosophy of that. Well, hey, like they just don't want to
I told
disclose
you
anything
this, but the
because
other
they
person
want to
was
give every person who submitted an offer an equal chance. So
Okay.
that's why.
That makes sense.
Cash?
Sometimes the seller doesn't want anything disclosed.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And sometimes the seller doesn't want
Wait,
anything
what did
disclosed.
he say?
He said sometimes the seller doesn't want anything disclosed. And so we have to take that into consideration. Like you can't just start disclosing everything without first talking to your client and finding out how much you can disclose.
Right.
So going on to the path of negotiation, option 2, we have the offer, rejected, countered, negotiation. And this can go round and round and round and round before we ever get to resolution. And this can happen throughout the contract, right? So let's see. I think we'll get to that. All right. So who are we negotiating with? We kind of already went over that. We're negotiating with the buyer. We're negotiating with the seller's agent. And then we're also negotiating with the other agent, right? We do want to make sure that we're creating a professional relationship with the agent so that someday when we go and somebody submits another contract, well, oh yeah, hey, I worked with that person. They were really great to work with. You don't want to be the one who's like, oh, no. We are not going with their offer. If it's only your offer on the table, they really don't have any other choice. But that's usually when it's like multiple offers, when it's, yeah, right. You don't want to be the fascia guy. Okay, so let's move on to, oh, shoot. Common points of negotiation. So, the first one, price, is obvious, right? So let's talk about some different terms that we can negotiate in a contract. So price is obvious. And usually that is the primary factor. That same broker who talked about the flight, and the turbulence and all of that, he also preaches this, which is so true. He says, selling a house comes down to 3 things: price, condition, and location, right? So if all of those things are aligned, then the house is going to sell. There's nothing we can do about location. We can't just pick up a house and move it. So really it comes down to price and condition, right? But we have to factor in the location, because if it's like backing up behind Redwood Road, a really busy road, well, that's going to lower the price. And so we have to factor that in, right? So we either say, okay, so price doesn't match the condition of the home. So either you have to lower your price or you have to fix your house. You need to paint your cabinets or get new flooring or something. But coming down here, so that right there, price is usually the primary factor. Yeah, it always does come down to price, no matter what. But if we're looking at, two different offers or multiple offers, then it comes down to the terms. So what are some terms that we consider when we're looking at offers or presenting an offer? Okay, deadlines. Wait. All right, so we have deadlines. Those are important. I always ask the sellers, the listing agent, when does the seller need to be out of their house? When do they want to close? What are some other points? Okay, financial acceptance. Like, what do you mean?
So if, let's say deadline, we want to be closed sometime in March. We're also doing some type of seller rent back. Maybe they're getting some type of kickback or some type of incentive for staying
Okay.
home.
So lease back, closing costs, earnest money, right? Is this in your way? What else?
And I can't hear a word they're saying.
Oh, that was Ben. And I repeated everything he said. You need the mic. Pass the mic around, y'all. I've repeated everything that they've said so far. So lease back, closing costs, earnest money. So lease back, everybody knows what a lease back is? Yeah, okay. Closing costs. This has kind of been an interesting beast, right? With the way that the market has been, most of the time sellers aren't paying closing costs, and sometimes buyers are paying their own and the sellers, which is kind of reverse of what it is in a buyer's market, right? So this is something that we probably will start seeing sooner rather than later. That sellers are going to start offering closing costs or paying for the buyer's closing costs as part of the deal. This is going to come back. I think we're already seeing it in some offers. Earnest money. What are some things that we can do that are negotiation tactics for earnest money?
When it goes hard.
Yep. Okay, so recently we've had it so that earnest money can go hard at acceptance, right? Or it could be at the due diligence deadline, or it could be 24 hours after you review your seller's disclosures, or 24 to 48 hours after. There's so many different things that you could do with earnest money, right? So that is definitely a good one. We can also offer more earnest money, right? And that it was that 8.1 or 8.2 or something. You could offer more. Anything else we can add here? There's a lot more than just 3, right?
As far as terms?
Yeah, just any terms.
So, I mean, this goes into closing costs, but any HOA fees, transfer fees,
Mhm.
Stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then another big term would be the type of loan if they're getting financing, right? If it's VA or FHA.
Yes, perfect. So loan type, is it conventional or VA, FHA? Why would somebody want to go with somebody with conventional lending over FHA or VA? Anybody know the answer to that?
FHA loans are typically a lot more difficult to fund because there's a lot of stuff they have to check and verify on the property condition and stuff. So
yeah, and VA is kind of along the same route. And also, Ben?
Yeah, I was going to say, so yeah, with conventional, if you've got multiple offers and maybe the price has been driven up, and one of the terms is that you'll you're going to go above the asking price, and maybe you're concerned about appraisal. Sometimes somebody that has conventional terms might have the extra cash to pay for an offer that's above asking price.
Yeah, so sometimes buyers who are going FHA or VA. VA is 100% loan. And then FHA is 3.5% down. And a lot of times they don't have as much of a down payment. That's not always the case though. Some people have the money, but because they can get that loan, they're going to get that loan because they want to keep cash in their pocket. But But another thing to consider with both of those loans is the appraisal. If the appraisal does come in low, the appraisal stays with that property for 6 months. So if it's conventional, it doesn't like lock in with the property because there's a FHA ID number for each property that they have to generate if it's going to be an FHA, and same with VA. And so if another VA buyer comes along and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and also along with what Ben was saying, there's a mandatory clause with FHA that basically says that any earnest money, any deposits, anything, you'll get your money back. So even if you say it's non-refundable at the acceptance, if it's the type of loan, it doesn't necessarily mean that's true. So a lot of times some strategy with that is we'll sign that amendatory clause at closing or right before closing so that they can't back out like up to that point. All right, terms. Okay, we've got loan type, we've got the HOA, we've got appraisals or something, right? That we can negotiate or a term later on or upfront.
What about escalation clauses? I'm not sure. Would that just be considered addenda, right?
I think that you could put that in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody knows what an escalation clause is? Okay, an escalation clause is if you say buyer will pay X, let's see, $1,000 over the next competing offer up to X or Y or Z or whatever, not to exceed. We do have the addendum for that now, the appraisal gap addendum, which kind of does the same thing for the escalation clause, but that is what one is. All right, let's see. Repairs kind of come up later, right? From due diligence. Yeah. Home warranty is one. And funny thing, really up until just like the last couple of weeks, buyers were saying, oh, we'll pay for our own home warranty, or the agent, I would usually kick that in and say, I'll pay for that for you. But sellers weren't paying for like any of this. And that's starting to change. So option fees, furniture is something. Appliances, right? There's lots of things that can be negotiated. Personal property can be negotiated into the deal. Granted, usually there's like, you have to have a what are they called? A bill of sale for the personal property that says it's worth 0 or that you're buying, if it's part of the contract, then it's worth 0 because it's coming with the house. Anyway, there's things that you have to do with that because underwriters sometimes don't like personal property in the deal. Okay. That's a pretty good list, but we can move on. Oh my gosh. You're right, Molly. Like sometimes the mouse. Now, am I not in presentation screen? Play. Ahas? Were there any ahas?
So I like the fact that this separated negotiations into basically 2 things, because before we were talking about how, well, negotiations can happen at least 4 times, but it's kind of nice to just separate it down to 2 things. But within those 2 things, with the terms can be huge.
Right. And the terms can happen at different times in the contract, right? We're going to come down before we write a contract, we're going to come up with our terms and our price. And then as we go along and everybody's agreed on it, yay, everything's wonderful. And then we have a home inspection. Now we're like, oh crap. And now it's another point where we can come back and negotiate and that can come down to, are we going to negotiate money off? Are we going to ask for repairs? We're going to ask for both. Are we going to ask for closing costs? There's so many different ways that you could go with the repairs in your negotiation. And one document that you should be familiar with is the resolution to due diligence form. That one is excellent because it has kind of those 3 options already laid out for you. And then you just have to pick and choose which one you're going to go with. And I recommend using that one when you're going to ask for repairs. With repairs, here's another, this might go along with, I don't know who, it was Julie. Julie, with repairs, there's some tactics for that too, because sometimes home inspections go really badly. And there's a whole bunch of things. And so what I usually do is I don't write that up in an addendum first. I'll create an email that goes over the home inspection. I'll list all of the repairs that need to be done, noting like from the home inspection report, what page it came on. And then we like, hey, like all of this needs to be replaced. What is the seller willing to do? And so we start there. And then we go in. So now they've seen all the issues and now he or she can take it back to their clients. And then the clients have a minute to chew that over and talk about it. And then we come back and be like, okay, all right. So look, I also sometimes put in what we think it's going to cost to fix every item too, so they can see it all adding up. And it's just a minute, for the other party to let that sink in before we send over any kind of like formal anything. And also really communicating with your client and asking questions to find out what they want. Do they want money or do they want repairs? And then that kind of helps me know how to strategize when I'm going to go talk to the listing agent. And this is coming from both sides. Like, I do both sides of the deal. I don't know why I keep talking about buying the buy side, but I am. Okay. So, all right. So let's go on to the 3 Ps of negotiation. So this is like the nuts and bolts of negotiating. So if you haven't already, flip to the 3 Ps approach page in your participants guide. Negotiation is a skill that anyone can learn. So don't let it overwhelm you. Anyone can learn it. So let's talk about that. So we have prepare, present, and position. So prepare. Preparation is the key to building confidence and ensuring a smooth negotiation process. Presenting is move into negotiation process by presenting the offer. And 3, positioning yourself, move both parties closer until you have full agreement. So we're going to go in depth in each of these sections. All right, so prepare. All right. So you need to know your goal. Have a clear goal of reaching a win-win agreement to which both the buyer and seller are satisfied with the outcome. So we're reaching that win-win, right? Remind your client of their motivation for moving or for buying the house. Sometimes, yes, this is the thing. Sometimes you do have to resell the house to your client as you go, especially when home, issues arise. They're like, oh, do I really want this house? Yes, you do. Remember, you liked this and this and this. So it's like keeping them in it, right? Keeping the seller or the buyer in the boat till the very end. Know your client. So,
So can I
Yes.
just say something? Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I was out with my sister yesterday because that's a whole different story. So anyways, we're looking at homes for her.
Okay.
And she started to freak out, and because she was like, okay, wait, am I going too fast? And I said, no, because if you don't keep your motivation going, then you go backwards.
exactly.
You can't stand still. So it's always going to be a constant resell. It's just because if you don't keep going forward, you will go backwards.
Exactly. Yes. I like how you said that. If you don't, what did you say
If you-
again?
if you don't move forward, then you're going backwards.
Yes. If you don't move forward, then you're going backwards. I love that. And it's true. It's constantly during the entire process. You're reassuring your buyer, you're reselling them the entire time, all the way to the very end until they get their keys. And then because they're scared, they're worried that something's going to happen, right? That's going to blow up the deal and they're not going to be able to move into their dream house. And so you are there to reassure them, resell them, keep their focus, keep them motivated, help them feel good. I mean, sometimes I say that we should have a degree in psychology because a lot of times being a real estate agent is being their therapist. So going on to the next one, knowing your client. So you want to make sure you fully understand your client's goals. And this comes down to asking questions, right? Really learning what areas that they are willing to negotiate and where they will stand firm. And sometimes when they tell you things that they're going to stand firm in one area, sometimes they change their mind. So you can't always, you want to respect that, but then at the same time know that could change too. Right? Like going back to that one client of mine, the luxury client, they were like, we listed the house at 1.8. And they're like, we're not taking anything less than 1.8. I was like, okay. This was before the big boom of 2020. So we actually listed the house in 2019, and that year was kind of a weird year. And so pretty soon, I don't know, a month goes by, and they're like, okay, well, maybe we'll lower it to 1.7. I was like, okay. And then they got offers. They started getting offers, but they were lowballing them every time. And so every lowball offer came in about 1.5. And I think we had 3 or 4 offers, and we could never come to, a resolution because my seller was not willing to come down, which I understood. They bought it for I think they bought it for 1.8, but they had rented it. So she was looking at, we're going to lose money, but then they had rented it for 10 years for $5,500 a month. They bought it cash and rented it for $5,500 a month. So you times that by 12, times that by 10, they made money. I don't even know what that is. Cash is over here calculating. Anyway, in the end, they ended up selling their house for 1.5. So they were like, no, we're not taking less. But after a few months, they did. And then crazily enough, the market shifted. And the minute we had it under contract, I had people calling me from all over, I kid you not, Boston, California, New York. We'll buy your house cash, 1.8, 2 million. I mean, I was like, whoa, well, we're under contract now. We're like, yeah, well, we can't find a house and we're moving to Utah and we need it and we'll buy it cash. And so unfortunately, what do you do then? You're under contract. Anyway. Okay. And by then my sellers were like, no, we're going to give it to them. All right. What's the other one? Think ahead. So this is something that I'm always doing, anticipating what the other party might want to get out of the negotiation. And I'm always kind of thinking, kind of trying to anticipate what they might counter for. And I even talk to my clients with that. Okay. So it's hard to say when it's multiple offers because it's You never know. But if it's not a multiple offer and they come in, say, like I've had some clients who will offer, let's go in. We just did this on a house in Brigham City. So the offer was the list price was for $390. We came in at we come in at $370, I think, and hoping to come in the middle somewhere. We were like, oh, maybe they'll like counter back in the middle. Well, come to find out, the listing agent called and he was like, okay, so we have this other offer, and he didn't tell me they had another offer. When I asked if they had another offer, he's like, we got another offer in, but it's a seller financing and it was for $410. And then he said, and they were under contract for $400. And so I think they really want to be in as close to $400. I was like, okay, well, you talk to your clients and find out what they want to do, and I'll talk to mine. I think they'll be okay with that. We were just, it'd been on the market for a couple of weeks and it went out of contract. It's an old house. There's a lot of things that need to be done, blah, 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 blah. And the agent came back to me and he said, okay, they don't want to do the seller financing, but if your buyer will come up to what we asked at $390 and not even go up to $400, what the other contract was, our clients will take that. And so I went back to my clients and they were already like, fine. We just went in lower because we can, they were like prepared to get it for $390. I was like, well, let's try this first. Anyway, it all worked out. They got it for $390. We're going to close next week. Okay. But thinking ahead, anticipating what the other person is going to be looking for, setting clear expectations. So this is key. And Ben kind of already talked about this. I would even say this is key in any transaction, but in particular with new construction. People lose their minds in new construction. And so setting clear expectations in any contract is really important. And when we say setting clear expectations, we're saying realistic expectations, right? So Ben used to be a new construction sales agent for Woodside Homes, and he did that for, 3-4 years. And they had a superintendent that was with the company for 20 years, and he was in Ben's community, and he was amazing. And he had his timeline, his schedule all dialed in. It was awesome. And so when buyers would come in, they had a specific build timeline that Terry could meet. And that's what Ben would tell them. Oh, what was it? 8 months, 6 to 8 months. Well, Terry goes to the bosses and says, hey, Edge over here is paying $20,000 more, and Richmond American's paying $20,000 more. And I've been with the company for so long. And they're like, sorry, we can't give you a raise right now, but we'll give you like a bonus of $1,000 or something. That was not enough. So he left the company and went to Richmond American and made more money. Well, it really caused a huge problem in Ben's community because the guys they brought in didn't have the same kind of experience that Terry had. Well, it started with one guy, then they had 2 guys, and then they had 4 guys, up to 4, right? None of them could do the same kind of work that one guy could do. So Woodside lost a lot of money in not just paying one guy $20,000 more to keep him there versus now yet they're paying 4 guys who can't keep the timeline. So Ben, it was really, really tough because all the buyers were mad because now what he thought was going to take like 6 to 8 months was now taking 2, sometimes longer. Sometimes some of them didn't close for like over a year because one of the superintendents missed putting in like a major gas line that went to all of the houses. Should have been done like way beyond. Anyway, so then it like so many problems. So Woodside's paying for trampolines and closing costs and hotel stays and like all these things to keep the buyers happy. So and Ben didn't know that Terry was going to quit. So at the beginning, he gave them what he thought was a clear and realistic goal. And then as soon as the agents left, then like everything changed and we had lots of mad buyers. So it says,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Then how did you handle that situation with your buyers? Like what did you find was the best practice to kind of reset expectations?
So that's a really good question. And
Closer.
for me, we had this thing called just our Monday morning meetings where we meet with the mortgage, the lenders, title, and then we can give updates on construction that following Friday to everybody. Well, most people were pretty engaged throughout the process, but they became more engaged when we gave them what we would call we would call the ball, so to speak. But they'll kind of like Top Gun, right? When you're ready to come in for the landing, you'd call the ball, and and so when they became even more excited, more engaged, when we would say, okay, your cabinets are going in, that would then set all of the wheels in motion to then, get the rates locked, and, they start scheduling moving trucks and different things like that. So my focus, what I did was I focused on those individuals first. So even though everybody in my back, I had like 60 people under contract, and so I had to juggle all them, they weren't as engaged as the people that I had already promised a move-in date, right? So I just had to focus my time and calming everybody down that was, that had already received those dates. So.
But it really was just hard conversations with their agents or them and saying, hey, this is what happened. Did you let them know that the superintendent quit?
Yeah. So with some of them, I'd have to let them know, okay, so here's the deal. You might not have known, you may already know that that our superintendent has quit, and that the new superintendents had to learn where they're at. And basically a lot of times we had to sit them down with our head of construction, with the project manager, sometimes with our sales manager as well. And we would have to have these heart-to-heart conversations of like, hey, listen, we realize that we dropped the ball. What is it that we can do for you to make sure that, maybe we could pay for rate locks, or maybe we can pay for hotels, or we came up with the trampolines or fences that we would pay for. So just something to keep them happy. But why in the world they wouldn't have just paid the superintendent more when he was already there for 20 years? It's like,
well, because I don't think
losing a lot of money.
I don't think they anticipated it to fall apart the way that it did when he left. Because I think a lot of times businesses think that people are replaceable, right? Which they are, but I don't think they took into consideration his experience, and I don't know, lots of things.
So essentially it just came down to over communication at that point, right? I mean, that was cool.
Which
Thanks.
We're having a similar situation with these other buyers that, we were supposed to close on one last week, and we still don't have a closing date because we don't know when Dominion's going to put in the gas line. So it's scary. It's really hard because I like to come in with bad news and good news. Hey, like, this is the bad news. We can't close on this date, but this is the plan, right? This is what we're going to do. And this situation was hard because there is no plan. The plan is we wait until Dominion installs the line, and then we know from that point it's 3 days. So that's all I can tell people right now. And it doesn't feel good to be in that, other than I'm just telling them, I'll weekly giving them communication updates. Yeah, I don't know how much longer, or we go till 11:30, right? Oh yeah. Do you need a break? You need to go get a drink or anything? Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So setting clear expectations. This says that part of setting clear expectations with your client is being clear that win-lose agreements are likely to be rejected. So sometimes when we ask, and we know as agents know that's never going to be accepted, or when somebody wants to completely lowball, like majorly lowball. That just happened just recently. What did we lowball? Oh. Mhm. I told my clients, I told them about the market. They know the market. He's an attorney. Attorneys, well, bless their hearts. They just like, they like to negotiate, you know, and they want to like take it down to whoosh, and then work our way up to where we find that middle ground, that win-win. And so I was like, you guys, it's not going to happen. But the property had been on the market over a month, almost 2 months, I think, this historic condo downtown. And they wanted to Airbnb it, had kind of a weird layout. Anyway, we went in so low and I was like, you guys, they're not going to accept this. Like, more than likely they'll reject this, which they didn't reject it, but they didn't do anything with it. They just didn't even respond. And so then he's like, okay, I kind of knew that was going to happen. And then he's like, all right, well, let's talk. And let's like, then they were willing to, then they went, we're going to offer a full ask price. I was like, wait a minute, you just, what? We went in $50,000 low. What were they listed? I think we were like 385 and we went in at like 339 or something like that. And then we're back up to 385 like the next week. Anyway, but yeah, setting those, it's not going to happen. More than likely it will get rejected. To set you up for success, make it a win-win. That's the goal. But sometimes, like I was just saying, not always does your client listen to you. And so you kind of have to, that's part of what our fiduciary is, right? We got to obey the client as long as it's legal. Okay. So next, be informed. So before making an offer or counter offer, it's a good practice to speak with other agents, ask open mind questions, active listening skills, find out questions. The next one, obey the laws. This one's pretty self-explanatory, I think, but know the laws, obey the laws. And then the last one, know the documents inside out. It's really like knowing what forms or what addenda or what things that you can do, like knowing about the escalation clause, knowing about the amendatory clause, or not, well, that's one too, but that's not a, what did I call it? What was it? The resolution one. Yeah, knowing that one. Like there is a class at the board. I'm sure they do it at UCAR. They do it at the Salt Lake board for sure. It's basically know your documents, and they go over like, how many are there? Like 80, 85? There's a lot, like 90 documents ish. So they do a whole class on it. It's a CE credit. Do that class. It's one that is really helpful. You might not use, like I use probably the same pen, all the time, but it is helpful to have that in your back pocket and know about it. Like it's there, it's in our back pocket, but we might not know about it. So go to that class if you can sometime soon when it's offered. That one's a good one. All right. Any questions? No? Okay. So asking the right question. So go to your asking purposeful questions page. This talks about basically understanding the right questions to ask in negotiation. And it talks about there's two types of questions that we need to consider. And they're just like basic question formats. And these are, anybody have an idea of what those might be?
Open-ended questions.
Yes. So open-ended questions or close-ended questions, right? So there's a purpose to both, and we'd use both. So in the open-ended questions, these are questions that are just like, that is just what it is, open-ended, right? There could be unlimited responses to the question. And so some questions that you could ask your client is, what other additional information should I need to know? When I called the agent on the other phone, I'm kind of leaving it open-ended, right? Tell me about what your client is looking for in an offer. That's very open-ended. However, I will go specific and say something like, is there a specific deadline that they need to sell their house by. So I might ask open-ended questions to kind of get the conversation going, asking some find out, and then I'm going to go specific.
So closed-end questions really are just that. They're closing questions.
Yeah.
So they're ways to take the temperature on your clients to gauge their interest level. And so you're only going to use those closed-ended questions to gauge where they're really at. So like the other day when we're out in Tooele and we're saying, okay, well, do you want to make an offer on A property or property B? Those were definitely closing questions, but
right.
in the meantime, we were doing all these open-end find out questions, which is
right. One thing is that a lot of times, we forget to ask our buyers, like, what is their timeline? When do you need to be in a house? And that's sometimes a really important question because you just don't know their situation, what they're going through. Like maybe their lease is coming up, maybe they're going to have a baby and they need a house and they want to be in that house before the baby's born. So asking these open-ended questions, but then like Ben says, after you've done those find out questions, then we can get more specific. So do you have any other offers? What date do they want their house sold? Oh, another term we didn't talk about was possession. So that's another point that we could add to the list of terms that we can negotiate. So I guess that was a lease that kind of on the lease back thing, but not everybody's going to ask for a lease back, right? So typically like on the MLS, the listing, it will say what the buyer or what the seller wants, right? It'll say like 24, or it'll say at recording 24 hours, 48 hours, 1 week, whatever. Well, we need to ask a lot of times sellers, like, how do you move out in 1 day? Sometimes they have the ability to do that because they're already gone and the house is vacant. So that's an easy one. Let's just do recording. But if they've got to pack up a whole house and be out, a lot of times sellers, they will not leave the house until they know it's a done deal. You go to the title company and then you go to your moving trucks. So giving them those couple of days, but what is reasonable that the seller is going to ask and what's reasonable that the buyer needs to get in? Because the buyers are antsy too. As soon as they get their name on title, they're like, all right, I want to move in. It's my house. But having grace and making the plan and setting expectations helps for everyone. Okay. Let's see. The next type of questions are, so before we were like the open-ended, with the unlimited responses and then closed-ended. And then the next type of questions that we need to think about are what and why questions. So why is that important to you? Ben has this question. So when he was at the builders, they did a lot of training with a lot of different real estate trainers. Like they're different than new construction trainers are different than resale. But they gave you that, what's that?
Yeah. So I highly recommend getting the book, the 4-2 formula. 4-2 formula.
How do you spell it?
You were here when I was talking about that, right? And so
Ben, what is it?
It's Jeff Shore is the author,
and
he's the trainer.
And it's just
4:2 formula. And so the 4 is basically this is just a formula to gaining trust, getting find out, and like moving forward on your closing questions. And so like the 4 side is building trust, or gaining trust. Then the second
was there like a formula?
Yeah. So it's gain trust.
Oh, this is the formula. So ask questions, like what type of questions to gain trust?
Well, this is just more or less you're building rapport, right? Crazy day we're having. It's really rainy out. It's this, it's that. It's finding common ground and similarities. And then from there, moving into asking, he likes to do something where he'll ask for permission. He'll give them the ability to have control over the conversation by asking permission from them to question them. And so the very first thing is you're going to talk about their dissatisfaction.
Oh yeah.
So next one is dissatisfaction. And so from there, you're just saying, why are you looking at new construction? Why are you looking at any home?
Why are you looking
And
at
actually,
moving?
the 4-2 formula was not written specifically for new construction. It
That's
was
true.
written for buyers in general, or you can use it for sellers as well, but it just works really well with buyers. And then the next one is, oh my goodness.
I put you on the spot.
I
Sorry.
know I wasn't prepared for this. The next one
You should have it
is,
memorized, don't you know?
motivation.
Oh yeah.
So dissatisfaction and motivation can seem similar, but they're not. It's like you're digging deep with the dissatisfaction, but then you're digging deeper with the motivation. And then the fourth one is their future promise. Like, so if you did find them something that works, what does their future look like? And then on the 2 side, it's just a summary of the dissatisfaction and then a summary of the future promise. And again, I just highly recommend that book because it's going to go through the process with everybody. And some people will be very honest about
And some
their
people don't want to
dissatisfaction.
say anything.
Right.
So you have to keep digging, but like this one, this dissatisfaction that could come through. Well, like I actually had some clients once who wanted to move because their backyard was too small and they were having their 3rd baby and they wanted a bigger yard. Funny thing enough, the new house we bought had an even smaller yard than the first house. Really, it came down what they said was their dissatisfaction. It ended up being, well, their house wasn't big enough. And now they were fine because the house had all the things that they needed for their 3 kids and guests and a really big unfinished basement that they could, move into. And so they made the backyard work. Plus that neighborhood had like a park across the street. And so we found ways to make it work. And they wanted to be in South Jordan because he worked in South Jordan and they were in Eagle Mountain. And so that was another dissatisfaction is he hated the commute. So when it all came down to it, what they told me they needed a big yard. Well, there was all these other dissatisfactions that we were able to, I guess, resolve besides the backyard. Anyway. Okay. So why is that important to you? Helps to gain. So the what questions and the why questions, or we recommend this book, 4-2 formula. Another book that you should read if you haven't already is Crucial Conversations. You need that one too. And they don't have an Audible of Crucial Conversations. I know it sucks because I was trying to get my son, he's just turned 18 and he doesn't like to let people down. And so then he'll like tell a lie. He'll lie to us because he doesn't want us to disappoint us, and he doesn't realize that lying to us is going to disappoint us even more, right? So I was like, buddy, you need to read this book, Crucial Conversations, learn how to talk to people. So I was tried to get him the Audible, and maybe it is now, but a couple of months ago, they didn't have an Audible version. All right. Okay, so we have a little scenario here. So turn to the scenario page in your participant guide.
Can I say something really quick about questions?
Sure.
Some of the best things that I learned just through car sales is when you want to ask good questions, make sure that you go 3 questions deep, not just, that's really good for gaining trust and building rapport.
Right.
Is going 3 questions deep on what you're asking. It also gives you a sense of clarity to what they really want. Like all your clients with all those dissatisfactions, right? Going deep on those, which I'm sure you did,
right,
helped identify, all right, well, maybe it's not the yard.
Right.
So
Because originally that was the thing, but then we found out more, there's more find out. And I always, so I used to teach high school English, and it's kind of the same concept. Is when we're asking somebody a question in class and they give us an answer, then we say, okay, tell me more about that, or tell me why, or, and so it's that same one question, but you just keep asking more about that and going one level, like you're peeling off a layer of an onion. We're getting to the core. I like that. Yeah. 3 deep. So, all right, we ready to do this? I don't have the thing in my thing. The scenario. Who has the scenario? You want to read the scenario? And we can all just brainstorm it together since it's just us. It's not a huge class.
You are representing a single buyer. Your client is renting her present property. Like any first-time buyer, she is looking to you to guide her through the process. The asking price for the home she really loves is $175,000. The house appears to have evidence of a roof leak, is listed as is, and is correctly priced. Your client would like to keep her payments as low as possible since she still has a number of student loans to pay off. She wants to write an offer for $155,000. There has been quite a bit of activity on the listing.
Okay. And so let's break that down. So what are the things that we need to know again? Okay. What else?
So,
What?
evidence of a roof leak.
Okay. So roof leak.
I think the house is listed as is. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's important.
She wants her payments as low as possible because of student loans. And there's been, it says quite a bit of activity on the listing.
Okay. So lots of showings. It's as is. Didn't it say it was priced?
Priced correctly.
Okay, so what do they want us to do? What's the?
I don't think it really says.
List clarifying questions to ask
Oh
her.
yeah.
Oh, right. Thank you. List clarifying questions to ask your client. Apply your new knowledge of open and closed questions. So what are some questions that we could ask the client? Let's just all brainstorm this since just there are 3 of us, 4 of us, 5 of us. What are some questions that we could ask our client?
Are you pre-approved?
Okay. Perfect. I might not write all of these down, but what are some other things? And yeah, I'm pre-approved. Yes, I'm pre-approved.
Okay. Do you have a pre-approval letter?
Well, my lender hasn't sent me it yet.
Awesome. Who's your lender?
His name is Russ.
Russ.
Uh-huh.
Do you know who Russ is with?
I think it's Security National Mortgage.
Awesome. Do you know what terms your pre-approval was for? Like what the amount was?
Yes. So I'm actually pre-approved for 165.
Yeah.
And what type of loan? I don't know. We'll do FHA. I don't have a very big down payment. None. Does that mean I can't buy a house? No.
Would you be offended if we started a group text between you, me, and your lender so we can all make sure we're on the same page so this goes smoothly?
Oh, yeah, I think we could do that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so if somebody doesn't have a or doesn't have a down payment, what are some options for them? Do you know? Anybody know?
There are 100% loan options that they can do.
Yeah, there are 100% loan options. I run into this a lot in this price point. You know, people who are like, I want to buy a house, but I don't have any money. Okay, I always find out, well, how much do you have? Because they need at least an earnest money deposit, right? What does that look like? That could be, I would say, minimum of $1,000, right? But depending on the price point, like that could be like $1,500, because we try to say like 1 to 2% right now for earnest money. But there is a program called a Utah housing loan and a Utah housing. Is it a loan? I guess it is a loan. Yeah, it's a loan. And so what they'll do is they'll do like conventional 3% or FHA 3.5%. And then the Utah housing picks up the whatever the down payment should be. So they have a first and a second. And so Russ, our friend, actually is a Utah housing pro. He's sits on the board of the Utah housing committee. So anyway, all right. So we found out she's only qualified for 165. She wants to offer 155. It seems like it's priced correctly at 175. There's lots of showings. What do we think about this? Like, is there any other questions that we should talk to her about? Set some expectations. Yeah.
We could go in a little bit more because she specifically mentioned her student loans.
Mm-hmm.
I might want to know like where she is she close to paying those off, or is this more of a long-term thing, and what is the actual breakdown of those student loans and how's that going to affect her mortgage?
That's true. I mean, I don't know that I personally would ask for all the exact information on the student loans, but I would definitely want to talk to the lender about the student loans and see if that's going to be an issue, because student loans have changed a little bit in recent years, which I didn't know this. Russ was just explaining this to me the other day. So it used to be that whatever your student loan payment was, that I think they factored that. I can't remember. There's different ways that they factor, and different lenders, there's like formulas that they factor. And now I think it's like, depending on your credit or depending on your debt to income ratio or whatever, doesn't matter what your payment is, they only factor like a certain percentage, but it's across the board for everyone. So maybe not me asking, well, what exactly are you paying for your student loans, or how many do you have, or all those almost paid off? Okay, well, let's talk to your lender and let's see what your lender says about those student loans and what kind of, how that's going to affect your payment. The other question that maybe I would ask is, okay, so you're qualified at 165. Is that for a single family, or do you know if that includes the HOA payment or doesn't include an HOA payment? Because if we're looking at, in what type of house is this? We don't know, right? Is it single family? Is it townhome? Is it condo? What is it? If it's a townhome or a condo, more than likely there's an HOA. And a lot of times when your lender gives you your pre-approval, it's for single family home. And the HOA payment is factored into the qualification. So usually if there's an HOA, it's going to drop this. So if it's $100, $200, whatever, how does that impact the max payment? So that would be another question to ask the lender. All right. So she says she's qualified for 165. If there's an HOA payment of $150, can we still look at houses in this price point, or do we need to lower that? Homeowners association. Yeah. And so generally all condos, and should I say all, I don't know, is that too? I would say most 99.999% of all townhomes, anything that's with the community where they're going to have like a shared, like spaces, like playgrounds, parks, driveways, parking lots, there's going to be an HOA because somebody has to maintain that. And so, but regular communities like single family communities can have HOAs too. Like we live in a community that has an HOA because there's like a big community park and some strips and stuff that they have to like maintain. It's pretty much nothing. We have pretty much nothing for an exorbitant amount. We're comparing to the neighboring HOA that is $100 a month and they get 2 pools, private marina, parks galore for $100 a month. And then ours is $85 for 1 park. Yeah. Sucks. Anyway, but yeah. Okay. Any other questions that we could ask?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I would make sure to ask, she's currently renting. What is when does her lease end?
That's a good one. When does the lease end? We got to know when she needs to be out, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious about this roof leak too. Like, how severe is it? Does it need a new roof? Do we need to call in an expert to, because as is another thing. So if somebody says they're selling their house as is, usually they mean they're not going to do any repairs, right? However, that's not always the case. If it's like a foreclosed home, the bank won't, right? I don't think the bank will. They're just selling everything as is, as is. You come in, you buy what you get. But sometimes when people are selling their house as is and they're saying we're selling it for $175 as is, but then you come in with your home inspection report. If there's something like structural, like major, like they're not going to do anything for minor things. But if it's a structural thing, then that's something where they may have to come back. In order for it to get a loan, they're going to have to fix things. Or like you talked about before, FHA and VA have certain things, right? So way back when there was lots of foreclosures, Ben did some, it was a dark time, worked for the banks and would go in and secure the houses and like put on handrails, like if it was missing a handrail, because they knew that like FHA or VA, somebody was going to come in. So had to make it so that an FHA buyer could buy the house. If there was like any safety hazard thing, that was a dark time. We're not going to talk about that. All right. Okay. Best practices. We've kind of gone through all of this with Julie, but when presenting an offer, we're moving on to presenting. When presenting an offer, we're going to call the other agent. We're going to pay attention to nonverbal cues like pauses and voice qualities. Why do we need to pay attention to nonverbal cues?
That's where 80% of their communication comes from.
Exactly. So pay attention. Another thing we're going to do is keep quiet once you present your offer. So you say, okay, this is what our buyer is thinking of doing. We're going to come in at 200. Our earnest money is going to be 2,000. We have regular due diligence deadlines. Seller pays for. I actually don't go into some of the nitty gritty stuff. Like I want them to look and see the HOA and the home warranty and stuff. But the major bullet points like earnest money, closing date, purchase price. I'm gonna talk to them on the phone. Possession, because those are usually like things that like sellers like, well, this person says they can close on this day and this person says they can close on this day. So that's usually like in their minds what's important. And the HOA or the home warranty is something that they just like, kind of like, it is what it is. It's $500. Now, if it's an HOA fee that has a 1% transfer fee, well, that's different. And that would be something that, hey, we're going to split the HOA transfer. And okay, so Utah State law passed recently is you can maximum go 0.5% of the purchase price for a transfer fee, but there are some communities that are grandfathered in and they could be up to like 1 to 2%, especially like in Park City. It's really high, but like 0.5% is Daybreak, Saratoga, Pepperwood. I don't know. It's pretty Edge, any of Edges are 0.5% transfer fee. Townhomes or condos. Okay, so we're going to listen carefully to what is important to the other party, stay calm and relaxed, focus on the customer's needs, and give your offer the best chance. So remember, you are always working to create a positive relationship with the other agent. Even if they don't seem to be very cooperative, like you need to try your hardest to be cooperative. When the emotions die down, they'll remember how professional that you were during the transaction, or if you weren't professional. And so remember, it's your career. And so keep your cool, keep your emotions in check. Build the relationships. Okay, so we have talked about preparing and presenting. So now let's move on to positioning ourselves. So, and this is for us when we're building to that win-win on both sides. So when you are engaged in the third step, you are going to acknowledge and affirm common ground. So what you're looking for are places where the buyer and the seller are in agreement here. This also helps to uncover areas that can be adjusted versus the ones that can't. So if your buyer is firm on something, or we know the seller is firm on something, then we have to look for other ways that we can come to an agreement. 2, ask what and how questions. So these specific type of questions will help you better understand the priorities of each person on either side of the table. So your guide, I think, has some additional information on what and how questions that could be useful for negotiating. The third one, know that positioning is a process. So sometimes you'll have to go back and forth multiple times to come to an agreement. That's what that means. And then lastly, know when to walk away. If it's not going to be a win-win without damaging a relationship in the process, then it's okay to walk away. And I think even creating that expectation with your client is important, that, hey, it's okay to walk away. One thing that Ben's old boss, Claire, used to say was there's a but for every seat. So come from a position of strength, whatever that is for your client, and just know that there's a point when there's a walk away. And she would always say there's a but for every seat. If it's not going to work for this person, it will work for somebody else. And so I was like that.
Well, and she would always say, usually when she would say that there's a but for every seat, it was to calm us down, knowing that if this deal doesn't work out, there's going to be somebody else that comes along, right? So, and then she was not afraid to let individuals walk away from the deal because they had their expectations that they set, and they did that with the contract. And when people wanted to think that they were somehow special or they deserved more and they didn't want to adhere to the contract, then she was okay letting them go because they just weren't team players. So.
Yeah. So there's one more scenario in the book. If you want to flip to that one, and let's look at that scenario and let's kind of break it down together. And then this is it. This is the last thing.
The property has 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and is listed at $350,000 in a well-established neighborhood. The house requires new carpeting throughout the first floor and a new garage opener. 3 offers have been made, but all were below the asking price.
Yeah, the buyer's role.
Okay, so buyer's role. Your buyers are making an offer of $340,000 for the house. They have been pre-approved. The buyers would like to close in the shortest time possible since they are moving from out of state and need a home for their family. Since they are leaving their appliances in their current home, the buyers would also like all of the appliances to be included.
Okay, and what's the other side?
Listing agent role. Your sellers have raised their family in the house you are selling and have many friends and family in the area. Since their children are now grown, they no longer need the amount of space their current home provides and have purchased a home in Florida. They would like to give all their appliances to their daughter, who has just gone through a divorce. They will not be moving until they have sold their current house. And although they would like to get to Florida as soon as possible, they are ready to stand their ground regarding the price.
Okay, go back to the scenario. What was the house listed at?
Property has 4-bedroom, 3.5 baths, and is listed at 350,000. Requires new carpet throughout the first floor and a new garage opener. There's 3 offers on the table, but they're all below asking price.
All right. So what would we do in this situation? Make a deal. We got to come up with some kind of win-win, right?
So the first thing on my mind is the new carpet and the appliances. So we know that they need appliances. We know that they don't want to give up their appliances. However, if it's got bad carpet, that might be something where you can work out the win-win, where
Yeah.
if both buyer and seller aren't really getting what they want, then maybe we can work out that third option on the carpet.
Yeah, exactly. So whenever we come in with an offer below ask, we have to have a reason why, right? Either the comps show it, or there's something with the condition that's going to, is going to like be a reason. So whenever I'm presenting an offer, and I think I learned this too back from when you were at Woodside, because people would come in with a low offer and they would say, well, how are you substantiating this low offer? Like there has to be a reason for you to come in low. And so maybe the comps are supporting a price at 350 with perfect condition, right? So then, like Ben said, we're going to come in with that third option and we're going to say, okay, well, we're offering 340 because the carpet needs to be replaced. Now, carpet these days, it's more than $5,000 to replace your carpet. What did we just pay to do the carpet in the basement? $4,000 for just the basement. And we only did 3 bedrooms. We did hard surface in all the other rooms. So that was just 3 bedrooms and the stairs. Right? Yeah. It's a lot more expensive than probably, so what they're asking for, it also needs a new garage opener. Well, that's cheap. But so we go in, we say, okay, based on the condition of the home, it needs new carpet, it needs this. Also, they want to take their appliances, like to buy new appliances. And why would you be giving away all of your appliances anyway? Because usually when you sell a house, you're going to leave at least the refrigerator is an optional. Dishwasher, range, and microwave are usually come with the house. Fridge and washer and dryer are negotiable. Unless the microwave is a countertop. We're talking about above the range or in the something, right? Okay, so Ben said we would come up with that third option and we use the carpet as a negotiating tool, right? To justify an offer price at 340. What would we do about the appliances? They're saying they want to give their appliances away. They want the appliances.
From which standpoint? The buyer?
I think either, like, what would you do for the buyer? And then let's look at the seller side.
So, I mean, from the buyer, right? I would try kind of like what Ben was saying. I would almost rather have appliances than new carpet, right? And so I would talk to, yeah, okay.
I think it is.
I would talk to the listing agent and see exactly how firm they are on appliances.
Yeah.
What could we do to work that into the deal?
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
From
the seller side?
From the seller's side, I would ask them, what the reasoning is because they want to give it to their daughter. Well, is your daughter buying a house? Or
Right.
like,
Does she have need for them? Like,
Yeah.
where will they go in the meantime? Like, is the place that she's moving into, does it have appliances?
would
'Cause
it,
most of the time they do, right?
would you prefer to leave appliances or give money off? Like
Mhm.
what would be a preference there?
And they say they're firm on the price, but I mean, carpet's expensive. It's probably 10 grand to replace your house. 5 to 10 grand anyway. Well, we don't know how big the house is. Well, it's 4 bedrooms. It's a big house.
Well, yeah, they say that the price is firm, but yet everyone has offered lower.
Right.
They have 3 offers and they're all below ask.
Right. So,
So something's got to give.
mhm. So maybe they come in, meet in the middle and they say, okay, well, let's go for 345 and we'll leave the appliances.
Just quick question. Doesn't every seller say that the price is firm?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Yeah.
Yes. But sometimes at some point, like Ben pointed out, there's 3 offers that are below ask. So at some point, the seller's going to have to look at that and be like, oh my gosh, like every offer that we're getting is lower. So what are we comfortable with lowering the price that we're okay with selling the house versus walking away and say, oh, never mind, we're not going to sell our house at all.
Well, and our buyers, even though they want to offer 340, which is below their 350, they haven't said whether or not they're firm on the 340. They could come in at the 350, but then ask for,
Okay, well, we want the new
ask for the new
carpet
carpet.
changed and we
Yeah.
want the garage opener fixed and we want the appliances.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're asking kind of a lot. They're saying, okay, we're going to sell it for all this, but all this is bad. These are some definite, legitimate points that we could use for that. Okay.
You could also bring up any sort of concession for it, right? Maybe they don't want to pay for all of the new carpet, but
True.
they'll
Right.
they'll
Can we
do
have 5,000 towards
Yeah.
carpet? Yeah, I like that. Or, so here's a way to negotiate that is we don't want to lower the price. Okay, we'll do 350, but we want $5,000 in closing costs. And the reason why we want closing costs is that's hard money that we can keep in our pocket, versus the purchase price is like amortized over like 30 years, right? So $5,000 difference on price is not very much in your monthly payment. The closing cost is actually going to give you the real benefit like right now because it's cash in your pocket. So they wouldn't have to use their extra cash to put towards their closing costs. Instead, they can save that and put it towards their carpet or appliances. Yeah, whatever one we worked out. Yeah, I like that. Anyone? Any other questions? Any aha moments? How do you feel? Are you ready to go negotiate? See, how are things going? Anyway, how far are you guys? How long have you been licensed?
May was my first month.
Awesome. So you're like a newbie.
I got my license in February,
Okay.
but I just started full time in May too.
Good. Very good.
Just middle of April. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So are you working on a team or solo, or we're doing the training first and then design? Oh, right. The productivity team. Yeah. Very cool. Well, awesome. Well, it's so exciting. There's so many opportunities, and for Ben and I, like real estate has literally changed our lives for the better. Like I can't think of any other thing that I'd want to do right now. Stick with it, push through, dig down deep.
I remember you said that you did the real estate development masters
Oh,
at
yeah.
Utah.
Mhm.
That's something I was kind of looking at.
Yeah.
Like, did you like it?
So I'm in the program right now.
Yeah.
And I'm loving it. In fact, like over the last couple of weeks, one of our we pay for Boomtown, which is a lead gen site, I guess. And they do like social media marketing and different things. Anyway, one of the leads that came in, he was like looking at this house in Alpine. I called him up and he's like, well, I don't know. We're kind of thinking about building. I was like, oh, cool. Well, my husband's a builder too. And blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it kind of went from there. And he's like, really? He's like, what I really want to do is I want to buy some land out in Tooele, build a house, and then develop some of the land. So crazily, like it's actually coming in. It's helpful. Like right now, like I'm seeing like real life uses. So the very first class that I took was real estate finance. And the two different projects in that class, one was we looked at a project and that somebody put together like a pro forma and like a whole perspective and every perspective, yeah, put together. And we had to pretend we were the bank. And we had to go through and decide whether or not we were going to loan money on this big development project. And then the last one is we had to put together our own development project. They gave us a couple of different, like, oh, this apartment complex or this or whatever. And we had to do so real estate finance with residential, like we don't really use finance. But in commercial deals, there's all kinds of formulas that you have to know. And so like this guy who we met, he's got all these like grandiose ideas, but he has like no idea of how to.
Once you have millions of dollars, you get the shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
Like even more because the world opens up. It's like you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like you can do apartment buildings, you can do townhomes, you can
Yeah.
do a development. You can.
And
he wants to do like
we don't know how
HOA camps. It's like he's got so much money that he doesn't really know where to
KOA.
focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know how he came into his money. And we're not sure, like, I mean, his wife is like,
There's a
seems,
lawsuit.
yeah, his wife seems really level-headed. And so we're like, we believe her because she's like, yeah, we're doing this. And we're like, okay, because when I look at him, I'm like that's when the whole judgment and everything has to go out the window. Like, you know, but, so he has all these, like Ben said, he has shiny object syndrome and he's got lots of money and big ideas. And he's like, and I have this friend who has money and this friend who has money and we can just like get everybody together. And I was like, okay, so you can do that. But I'm telling you, none of your friends who have millions of dollars are going to invest in anything without a plan, a business plan, and without a pro forma. And that's like a very fancy Excel spreadsheet that has all of the projections and loan to values and future values and all the things. And so, yeah, that class has been amazing. And then I'm only 2 semesters in. So the second semester, well, I suck at Excel but part of the program, we have to take Excel for advanced professionals, like accounting professionals or whatever. So you have to like know all this fancy stuff. And like the only Excel class, okay, I'm 43. The only one and only Excel class I took was in college at BYU in 1998, probably. That was this long. Like it was a part of like a tech class I had to take that had like, oh, we're going to learn a little bit about this and a little bit. It was like just it wasn't even Excel. And that's all I know about it. So that one was really hard for me, but for other people who like know how to use Excel already, it's probably really easy. I've taken a construction development process and I took construction law. And so I love it. I'm loving the whole thing. Yeah. So they say that like 50% is like the education that you get. And then the other 50% is like the networking. And so far, like just alone in just the program, like I've gotten a few deals from just being a part of it. And then I got a scholarship and was at a big banquet thing that we went to. And that was exciting. I mean, because you didn't get to know other people in the industry, but yeah, you should look into it. It's the Masters of Real Estate Development. It's at the University of Utah. And I think Johnny and Clay both went through the program. Is there anybody else who's gone through the program? What's his name? Their lender guy. He did it. The A team. Yeah. Yeah. Austin Ingersoll went through it with them. Another friend of ours that we've known who runs a big team, his name is Justin Udy, and he just finished the program. Yeah, it's kind of, anyway, it's awesome. So I don't know, like I'm kind of using it because I'm like, oh, look, like I know how to put together a big presentation for a bank, and I know how to do all of the figures and like be able to do all the financial planning for that. So we'll see. This guy's like all over the place right now, though. We're looking at lots just to like develop into like half acres and then build a house. And now we're looking at other lot where now we're going to maybe do multifamily and commercial. And then we're looking at this other lot where maybe we'll do a gas station and a KOA, like stop. But yeah. So do you have an undergrad that already? Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. The way that we found out about the program is we were down showing some rooftop luxury townhomes down in Holiday-ish area. And this like cute little young girl like drives up in her white Jeep and she's showing us around and we're like, oh, this is so awesome. Like, how did you get this gig as the builder's agent? She's like, oh no, I'm the developer. And Ben and I were like, shut the front door. No, you are not. You know, she looked like she was 20. And we're like, how, like family money? Like, how did you learn about this? What did how did you get into this program? And she said that she had just gone through the MRED program, and every year they do a competition. So Ivory Boyer like has some land and they say, okay, we have this piece of land. We want you to come up in your team with an idea to do something with this land. And like a lot of people partner with different schools too. So like all over the state of Utah can get involved. And then sometimes they'll be like, okay, well, I'm in the MRED program. I'm going to take somebody from the architecture program to help us with the concept. And then we're going to choose somebody from BYU's construction management program or something to come help us like come up with all the numbers and everything. Well, anyway, her team won. And so when they win, they fund it. Yeah. And yeah. So in this area of Holiday, they were looking there. I don't know if you've been up there for a while, but it was Holiday, right? Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Anyway, there's this one part of the old part of Holiday, and they're like wanting to repurpose the area, like revitalize the area. And they were just like, what can we do? And they have a bunch of shops kind of nearby, and they had this weird piece of property. And so that's where they came up with it just fit in with the city plan, and they liked it. And so then from that, she was telling us from that deal, then they were able to like start another project up in like the canyon, like Wasatch over by like big Cottonwood Canyon or Little Cottonwood, somewhere over there. Awesome lots they had found. And anyway, just kind of like it was a huge catalyst for her and her team. So that's kind of where like we got this idea. It's like, okay, we do real estate. Ben's done new construction. He's also a contractor. What we don't know is how to do entitlements and the developing aspect of it. And so anyway, fun. It was fun. Yeah. So thank you